Hey guys, Becky here, FiveTwoBaker. Welcome back. This week we're doing something a little different with the intro because life has been a little bit messy and so I can't seem to get properly dressed and stand in front of a camera all in the same day. So instead, I'll show you the tutorial I'll be sharing with you today. We are going to make this super easy wired peony. I love it because you can adjust the wires to have them be closed, or you can have it be a fully open bloomed peony, and it's so easy to adjust it. It lends for a bit more flexibility than if you create a peony that has no wires. We are using minimal tools, minimal dusting, and minimal number of petals so that we can get it done as quick as possible. I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial. Let me know in the comments below, but let's get started. So for this peony, I will be using the peony cutter as in my other peony tutorial, but I'm only going to use the third and fourth cutters. We're only going to do two sizes, and I'm not going to use the veiner that comes in the set. Instead, I'm going to use this Bros veiner because the veins are a lot softer here. If you don't have this peony cutter set, no worries. You can also use two rose petal cutters. The petals are very similar in size, and so you just make a few adjustments. You can cut a little slit in the middle to give it those slits that the peony has, but you just go ahead and get any two rose petal cutters that you like, a smaller and a larger, and you will be all set. Also, because the veins are so subtle in this flower, if you don't have a veiner, you don't need it. You probably won't notice it unless you look super close. So the first thing we're going to do is make the center. I'm going to make 3 of those little teardrop shapes for my center. You can make anywhere from 3 to 6 of them, but I'm going on the simpler end. You go ahead and grab some 26 gauge floral wire, add a hook to it, and then add a little bit of edible glue to the end of that hook, wiping off the excess. Then using green flower paste, go ahead and make some teardrop shapes about a 1/2 inch tall. In the thick end is where you will insert the wire, and then you pinch and squeeze and give it a little curl at the top on the thin end of your teardrop shape. And once you have all 3, you just go ahead and smush them together a bit so it looks like they were formed all together. And you can add some glue if you like. If you're adding the glue, just make sure you keep them all together when they're drying so that they dry fully. I like to dry mine on a wavy foam board just so it doesn't lose shape. Now for the petals, I'm going to use some wine-colored flower paste, and I'm going to place it inside a Ziploc bag. The Ziploc bag has all the edges cut off so that I just have a front and a back, and I'm going to roll out the paste so that I have a thick center and very thin sides and a very thin top. I want the thick center so that it's easy for me to insert the floral wire later. And the reason I use a Ziploc bag as opposed to a veining board is so that I don't have to use any cornstarch and dry out the paste. I'll go ahead and make 8 using the smaller cutter. And then using a 26 gauge floral wire, I go ahead and dip it in some glue and insert it into that thick center about 1 centimeter. Pinch the bottom to make sure it's secure. And then because this peony cutter is a bit rounder than I'd like, I'm just going to go ahead and trim off the edges so that it has a thinner center and looks a bit more triangular in shape. You can leave it round, it'll be super pretty that way. I was just being very picky when I was making this. Once you have the shape that you like, go ahead and put it on your foam board, and using a large rolling ball tool, thin out the edges, making sure to leave the center nice and thick so that it holds your wire and supports the rest of the petal very nicely. Once it's all thinned out, go ahead and bring out your veining tool if you're going to use it. and pop it in there, making sure that you don't bend the wire in the curve of your veiner so that it doesn't pop out. Now what I'm going to use to form it is an egg mold. It's a silicone egg mold, and I make sure to put the wired end on the thin end of the egg mold, and the outer side of the petal should be on the larger end of the egg mold. I'll go ahead and repeat this process for all 8 of the small petals, and then repeat the exact same process for 8 of the larger petals. So I'll have 16 petals in total. You can of course make more or less depending on how full or how sparse you want your flower to look. Now once my center is fully dry, I carefully bring the wires together, and using some green floral tape, I'll go ahead and tape them all together so it looks like I just have one center stem, one wire. Now I want to add a bit of color to my center, so I'm going with a dark green and a bright red. The dark green I'm going to put on the very bottom of my center and just drag it up towards the top a bit so it fades away. And then the bright red I'm going to put on those curly thin little tips at the very top, and I'm going to drag the color a bit down so it fades away from the top. You can use a pink or a red, whatever you have on hand, or you can just do it with the flower paste as well instead of having it be all green. But my center is a dark green and I wanted the color to pop, so I went ahead with a bright red so that it would show more. Now I want my peony to be wide open, so I want it to have a very fluffy center. So I'm going to use 3 bunches of these double-headed peony stamens for the center. I'll cut them in half so it looks like I have 6 little bunches, and then I'm going to bring them together and tape them with some floral tape. Once they're all taped together, I begin to open them up a bit from the top just to find the center, and then I thread my carrier wire right through the center of it, making sure not to push out any of the little stamen bunches. I adjust it at the top, trying to get everything to look nice and tight. And then I go ahead and bring out all of my petals. I'll start by bringing out all 8 of my small petals, and I'm going to bend them just slightly at the base. I don't want to bend them as open as I want them right now because it'll get in the way of my taping, so I just bend them a little bit. I go ahead and attach some floral tape to my center, and then one by one I'll go ahead and arrange 5 petals to be on the first layer right outside of my center. Once I have those first 5 petals, I'll go ahead adding by size petals in between each of those first. So they will not be layered, they will be overlapping. I won't have a full second row of small petals for my second layer, but that's okay. I just go ahead and bring in my larger petals, which are not drastically larger, so that's why it doesn't look ridiculous. And I just move on with those, so it's a nice gradual change in size. And I continue to overlap them until I am all out of petals. Now, because I'm going super simple on this, I'm not going to do any dusting of the petals. I just go ahead and adjust them by moving them from the base where the wire is. I don't want to accidentally break any of the petals by pushing on the outer edge of it. And once I'm happy, I go ahead and add any greenery I like, and I'm all done. Here it goes again with a few leaves on the side. I think it came out super pretty. As always, if you have any questions, please do drop them down below and I'll make sure to get back to you. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to give it a like and hit subscribe if you haven't already. I would super appreciate that. If not, I will see you guys for the next tutorial.